Hey, it's Alan Murabayashi from the PhotoShelter office here in New York City. Today we have a very special guest, Rachel Bean, who's the creative director from Billboard.com, who's going to tell us about how she uses photographers and how she hires photographers. Rachel, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much, Alan. Good to be here.
Um, we have, I guess we'll go right into it. I just want to point out the Milo Xyloto. Am I pronouncing that right?
Who
I did
knows?
legally download that today, so that's Coldplay's
Oh,
new
good.
album, and you'll be very impressed when I drop names as we go throughout this presentation. You know, a few bands that I actually recognize, even though I'm more of the Whitney Houston generation, but that's cool, right?
Yeah, totally. Whitney's
Okay,
good.
so Rachel, take us kind of briefly through your CV here.
I graduated from UCLA in 2006. I was working as a photographer kind of before that. Thought I wanted to just go strictly into shooting, but sort of migrated into the editing realm. Worked as a studio assistant and then started my first job as a photo editor at AOL. Then went in the kind of the Latino division, then went to the style and food division. Then became the art director and then recently the creative director for Billboard.com.
Do you think you have sort of a leg up or just a better understanding because you were and are a photographer?
I do. I just feel like when I talk to my photographers, I can be very specific about every sort of logistic from cropping, framing, post-production, understanding what lenses they're using, what bodies they need, just sort of the logistics of shooting. I often feel like I can have that conversation easier.
Yeah. And something that you pointed out to me yesterday, which I didn't quite realize, but it is true of a lot of .com properties. So Billboard, the magazine, and Billboard.com, I think you mentioned really operate as almost two separate entities.
They do. So Billboard Magazine is a trade publication. It's a lot of music business information. You're not going to have a pop piece about Justin Bieber's haircut in there. But on the .com site, it's very consumer oriented. You're going to have a lot of fluff pieces, a lot of kind of more fun, superfluous pieces. You're not going to have kind of an industry report on kind of numbers of what's happening in that kind of that business oriented side. You are going to have the charts definitely, but it's definitely a consumer-oriented website.
Right. So, and did you use the word like lifestyle site yesterday, or
Mm-hmm.
did I make that up? So it is kind of like a
It's
music
his.
lifestyle.
It is. I mean, definitely. We just recently launched a fashion vertical, so we're kind of having fashion music reporting. We're about to launch a country blog, so it does. I mean, all of that sort of feeds into a kind of a lifestyle brand to an extent.
Gotcha. So one of the first images, a portrait that I love of Amy Lee from Evanescence. Why don't you take us through this a
Mhm.
little bit?
I love this portrait. I just reconnected with this photographer named Joseph Yanis out of Los Angeles. I worked with him. It was one of my first shoots that I ever did, pretty much right out of college at AOL Latino. He shot Daddy Yankee for me a long time ago, and this is before he had really started shooting celebrities and musicians. So I sort of just loved him stylistically and wanted to give him a chance. And fortunately, I got to reconnect with him years later and had him shoot Amy Lee. I love Joseph's post-production style. He's very specific about his color choices and kind of what he does and how he treats the images.
You had mentioned yesterday as well because we were talking about post-production in general, and I came from a kind of a strict photojournalism
Hmm.
bent where we didn't really touch anything. You really like the stylistic things that people are doing, and I dare say it's almost, we were talking about Instagram before we got on, and they're kind of
Right.
Instagrammy in a way, right? With saturation and the
You know,
vignetting and
totally. They are. And I have to admit, I love a photographer that really has a specific post-production look, specifically in portraiture. It really feeds into the design of the website. Billboard.com is very bright, very poppy, has that sort of almost surreal Instagrammy feel to it already from a design perspective. So I think the photography just enhances that.
so how Rachel finds photographers. I was sort of, I guess I wasn't really that surprised. I took it as a fact of life that you get a lot of work from The Wire, from Getty Images. So
Yeah.
take us through this little sheet here.
I do. So, I mean, a lot of our photo galleries, news photos, photo features are done through Getty Images. We have a fairly exclusive deal with them, where we have kind of an allocation each month. Um, a lot of Getty images, a lot of images on Getty aren't necessarily those kind of paparazzi through the window type images, like beach bodies, images that we
Right.
sometimes need to do for summer features. So I often go to Splash and When and PCN and INF, and there's a whole bunch of those paparazzi networks. But we have a really close relationship with Getty at Billboard, and we most of our photography comes from them.
Do you think that there's kind of or can you describe the stylistic difference between the photos that you use on the .com site versus a People magazine or a Rolling Stone magazine?
Sure, in terms of portraiture that I specifically hire for, or in terms of Getty or Splash and those
I think
images.
a little bit of both, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely the kind of the differentiations. I think we all, definitely Rolling Stone and People, we all use these kind of paparazzi shots. I don't think there's too much of a difference in terms of use in that sense. Also, Getty is a big provider along with AP, to get those sort of wire images. In terms of kind of portraiture, I think we specifically, and from what I'm trying to kind of cultivate on the site, is definitely a very bright, contrasting, kind of an extreme aesthetic. I think it's not necessarily always that case consistently with the other publications. Is that kind of
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
looking for?
So that real kind of, dare I say, like Japan pop look where it's super saturated or can be.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to just blanket statement it, but I do like color. I mean, I do print
Right.
black and white photos. I definitely have had, and I think there's some further on. I do love beautiful black and white portraiture too, but there's still that aesthetic remains of kind of that very contrasting pop look.
So just so the audience understands, the stuff that you're getting from the
Mhm.
wires versus the stuff that you're commissioning, can you make that distinction so they
Sure.
understand, like, they're not sending you crap?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily, if Katy Perry was at a perfume opening yesterday, I'm not necessarily going to send my own photographer to shoot that. The wires are going to be there, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of a waste of my time to try and hire out for that. So I just pull from the wires. And, in terms of what you were talking about before, I'm not going to do heavy post-production. They're news images.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a fine line, and I'm not going to do any sort of manipulation to that. I do basic color fixing and contrast controls, but nothing extreme on that. So you will notice a difference a lot of the time between our proprietary portraiture and wire images.
A lot of people, well, a few people are asking, like, why Getty, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like it's
Why
more out of
Getty?
just
Yeah.
convenience. They're covering all
Yeah,
of the major events. You don't have to send someone to use your own photo budget because you have presumably a
exactly.
wire subscription. Okay.
I mean, Getty's great. Getty, we are a very small team. It's pretty much me, the only one doing art online. I don't have a team of photo editors to kind of hire people for multiple events. When we have special access to events, that's when we like to hire. But when we just need one shot of Rihanna on stage, I'm not going to necessarily hire out for that when I can easily just pull from Getty. Getty is great. They really cover everything.
Yeah.
And I can always call my rep and say, "Are you shooting this? Are you not?" Super responsive. It kind of reserves my budget and my time for kind of more important, more kind of accessible specialty items.
Right. So, a portrait, for example, of a band that you're profiling might be something that you would hire a photographer for.
Definitely.
And you
Whenever
said
we
here
have,
is the,
mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Whenever we have pretty much our photography is in tandem with our video shoots. So whenever we have anyone in the office or anyone at our studio, or we have any sort of access with a video camera, I make sure that we get someone in there to get a portrait of them. When we have that access, I like to get that content.
Um, and the last point that you have on this sheet, which I thought was great, is being able to deal with potentially awkward or
Yeah,
stoned musicians as
right,
being like, obviously you're not going to send a portraitist who hasn't done any work taking portraits before into a
right.
job, right? This is kind of like you have to be able to deal under pressure, quick deadline turnaround, etc.
Exactly. I mean, even the point before, in terms of speed and flexibility and on-the-spot creativity, the photographers I like to work with and hire are very energetic, very flexible, kind of have the ability to make an amazing shot out of potentially nothing. And yeah, sometimes the talent is, dare I say, a little bitchy, a little hard to work with. They
Yeah.
might be stoned and sort of out of it. They might beg you to take portraits of them only smoking joints, which, yes, has happened. So, I mean, I definitely like to hire and work with photographers who sort of see the humor in all of this and sort of kind of can go with the flow no matter what happens.
This is that Most Def?
That is Mos Def. Oh God,
Uh,
I'm totally gonna mess up the other guys, but these are legends of rap. This is at a Rock the Bells shoot in San Francisco.
mhm.
This photographer, Misha, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. I'm sorry, Misha. Misha Vladimirsky is great. I hire him in San Francisco. I actually met him at Lollapalooza. He does just great work behind the scenes at live events. Gets wonderful portraiture and kind of these beautiful candid shots in San Francisco.
And this was because it was kind of more of a niche event that you hired a photographer to shoot this, or because you had special access?
This is a good case of I actually am probably one of the few kind of photo directors that actually likes being pitched consistently.
Mhm.
Misha, I had formed a relationship with him at Lollapalooza. We were both shooting in the pit together, and he gave me his card. I said, "Drop me a note if you have any concepts in San Francisco." And he dropped me a note, and he's like, "I can get backstage and do like a behind the scenes thing for you at Rock the Bells. Are you interested?" And I said, yeah, great. Why not? Let's take a chance. And he came back with great work. So we're
Very
doing
cool.
more and more of these pieces with Misha because he consistently delivers great, great photos.
So I'm seeing a lot of questions coming in, and it seems like I have to clear up some of the perception that's going on.
Okay.
Billboard.com,
Uh-huh.
if you were listening from the start, does not only work with Getty. They do
No.
pull a lot of stuff off of the wire, but she does hire photographers to cover things. And in this particular photo, she said the photographer pitched her the idea to get coverage for the show.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are still angry about Getty, but
I mean, I'll
here's
be
some of the other
honest.
things that are going on here.
I'll be honest
Right.
about any website. Any website is going to be using these wire
Yeah.
services. I don't know any website that doesn't. I mean, specifically kind of a music oriented, go to Rolling Stone, go to Spin. They're all going to be using an occasional Getty, AP, wire image, film magic shot, or paparazzi shot. It's very common. I mean, thousands of images are on these websites, if not, God,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands. They can't all be hired out shoots.
How Billboard.com uses imagery. I thought some
Mm-hmm.
of this was interesting that you had done a lot of the initial photography yourself when you got there.
Yeah, so there really was no photo budget when I first came. Most of the promotional images that we were using on our website for our video pieces were screen grabs, which as a photographer I was, no, we need to have, photographers shooting this. We didn't have a budget at first for that because it had never been shown what a difference it would make. So for about a year, I shot 2 to 5 shoots a week for Billboard.com.
Oh, and it was the success of those images that convinced the higher ups to create photo budget. Is that kind
You
of how it
know,
worked?
yeah, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but I mean, the difference between a screen grab and a really nice portrait of a band, on the main page of a website is going to get more attention. It's a better image. And I think what really sort of started to click that, oh God, we really do need to have this proprietary photography on the site is kind of when the ad sales team started including it in their pitches and saying, with this video series, there will be a beautifully shot photo gallery.
Ah,
So that, of course, it goes back to the money, but it comes back to that
right.
really, and the fact that just it was beautifying our site, and I think everyone took notice of that.
No, but you
But
know what?
definitely,
That's a good thing to point out so that the photographers understand. Like the photography was supported by the fact that ad sales could make money off of it,
yes,
which created a budget
definitely.
for it, right?
Definitely. I mean, any sort of additional pitch that you can get, kind of additional revenue, it will be pitched and that will be promised and that will be delivered. So I think it definitely helped when I said, you know what, I'm just going to shoot this and it's going to be included in every single feature. And then it just became the language of, oh, this feature will always include this gallery and this portrait.
So a lot of photographers are asking what the editorial rate is for Billboard.com, and does that include things like expenses?
Yeah, well, it's I'd
Nobody
prefer
said it
not
was
to
going to be
say
good.
if that's okay. If that's
That's
okay.
fine.
I mean, it's a range. It's
Yeah.
definitely a range depending on what you're doing. And there's kind of I've clear delineations on what is being shot, and also how much budget I have at any particular moment.
Right.
It's a new budget, and I feel like it's a great budget, and I think it's growing, and I think there's a lot of future potential for it, but it's still a new budget that we're trying to figure out. I do think that we pay photographers, a pretty good rate for strict online use.
Right. Right. And you say that you have a handful of go-to photographers that you use, and that obviously is because you have established relationships and they're reliable.
Yeah.
How many new photographers do you think you'd pick up in any given year?
Sure, sure. Well, since I recently just started having a budget, I'm talking about a budget, God, maybe 3, 4 months old, not too long. And we've produced quite a few shoots since then, and it's been
Hmm.
great. But I try and aim to pick up a new photographer a week. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm trying to do that. It totally 100% depends on our shoot schedule.
Yeah.
If I hear of something like yesterday, we currently are having this day in the life that I was telling you about with Soldier Boy. I found out that we had that yesterday. I had to call someone that I worked with and knew right away because I didn't want to explain anything. I didn't want to go over
Right.
paperwork. I know Kyle. I wanted him to shoot it for me. But when I have more lead time, I like to try and find a new photographer every week.
Okay. And we'll get into how you are actually finding
Sure.
that talent. So here are some of the .com screen grabs that we have here. And can you explain what Tastemakers is?
Sure. So Tastemakers is a video series, like I mentioned before. Currently, all of our photography, pretty much I would say 95% of it, is pegged to a video series. So when we have video, we have a photographer come in. Tastemakers is a video series that kind of just brings in sort of young, under the radar artists. We actually did one with Bruno Mars before he sort of got big, and does this beautiful video shoot with them on a rooftop. And I also have photographers shooting all the behind the scenes, the live performance and portraits of them. So it's a video series.
And who's making the call on which artists to feature? So a number of people are saying, I'm in this locale, I'm in this locale. Would you be interested in Canadian rappers or Australian, hip hop groups, etc.?
I think I
Is that
sort of
something that they
lost
can?
you for a
Oh, I'm sorry.
second. All I heard
Um,
was Canadian hip hop groups.
my question was, who is, I guess, on the editorial side of
Hmm.
Billboard.com making the call about which bands to sort of feature? So if a photographer
Sure.
knows of like this hot little group in Podunk, wherever it is, and they
Right.
pitch it to you, is that even feasible that it might get play, or is somebody else making that call?
I mean, most of these calls, it's a combination. Our editorial director, Ty Comer, is sort of oversees all of these calls. I mean, he really kind of yay or nays everything. But I think a lot of these pitches for talent coming from our kind of our multimedia producer slash talent booker slash ambiguous title, woman of all trades, Lisa Binkert. And she really produces a lot of these shoots and has the relationships with the industry and brings in the talent. But it's sort of yay or nayed by our editorial director on the site. But it's really it's a great environment to work in. I don't think there's a lot of naying. I think Lisa is phenomenal with choosing really good talent for these video series.
So the portrait that we're looking at in this little video player of the band Yuck was
Hmm.
a photographer who you commissioned to be on set
Yep.
to take this, and then over on the right column where we have Nicki Minaj's best
Yeah.
wigs, those are coming off of The Wire, presumably.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So you can sort of see now why I have to use Getty. I couldn't have a photographer shooting all of Nikki's 15 various red carpet looks. It just makes more sense to have a light box in Getty, you know.
Right.
But for this proprietary video series, of course, I'm going to hire someone for it.
All right, I saw some photographers from Austin, Texas in the house, so we can talk about
Sweet.
South by here. So this was like kind of a mini site that was thrown together for the festival.
Yeah, this is, you know, I work on this kind of user interface when we have festivals, and these are sort of our fun little experiences for festivals. We have a few that we do that we really blow out. South by is one of them. Lala, Bonnaroo. Those are kind of our top 3 ones. And yeah, this was great. South by, we had our own Billboard showcase last year. Odd Future was our big crazy headliner on our final
Tyler
night.
the Creator.
Tyler the Creator. Ooh, he had a little bit of drama during our South by show.
Oh, did he?
He did. He threw down the mic, said an expletive, including Billboard, and then kind of ran out of the venue. So we only got a few photos.
So this was being the Billboard showcase. You had your photographer there who took this photo?
Gotcha. Yeah, Hadas, a photographer that I hired for this. She basically just hung out. I believe, I think it was 3 or 4 nights that we had our showcases going on, and she just hung out from, I think they started around 7 or 8 till 1 in the morning and just shot all the bands performing.
And at the larger festivals, how many photographers are you hiring to cover these things?
That is a great question. Usually only 1.
Okay.
It's, you know, and I would like to start hiring more because I shot Lollapalooza solo last year, and it was one of the most heart-wrenching things that I've ever done. I had an assistant, but she kind of worked behind the scenes, but I definitely needed a second shooter. So from going forward, these big festivals where we have big presences, I definitely want to hire 2 shooters.
Who would be kind of the ideal, like, you know, we have several hundred people listening to this and thinking, hey, I can shoot that kind of stuff. Are they more likely to get that job as potential second shooter by submitting you live action concert photos? Or are they more likely to be like you're both hanging out in the pit and they hand you the business card and say, hey, you know?
You know, I have to admit I've met a lot of shooters in the pit because I do shoot, and I do shoot Lala every year, and I have met a lot of my photographers at Lollapalooza. I definitely appreciate when a photographer is friendly in the pit. You know, you get a lot of photographers who are kind of haughtier than thou and don't want to socialize. I sort of always want to talk to everyone when we're raiding around.
Yeah.
So the photographers that really come up, like Misha did in the pit at Lollapalooza this year, super nice, just nice to meet you. Here's my card if you ever need anything. You know, drop me a line. I love that. I love that. And I also, you know, I don't mind getting kind of pitched and mailed. I just really kind of appreciate more kind of sincere, genuine, I excited emails, you know. I don't necessarily, I think I've mentioned this somewhere in the presentation, that I don't necessarily want kind of these indirect, insincere, from a rep emails. You know, I want you to be super excited about the possibility of shooting On Future at South by.
Here is how the Amy Lee photo was actually used online.
Exactly.
Which is nice, yeah.
So what's so great about this is Joseph shot probably 8 or 9 different looks for me. And what's great about online, instead of just a magazine where they'll choose 1 or maybe 2 shots, you know, I ran all 9 looks. So we had a gallery of all of his images that he shot, which really gave play to kind of Joseph's style and his images.
So when you run that many images, are you paying on a per image basis, or is it paid for the shoot?
It's paid for the shoot. It's not per image. I think most online sources work like that. Because there's sort of this endless real estate, it's based on the shoot. Yeah,
so that's kind of the reality of online galleries and usage. Okay.
Definitely. And you know, for us, we're not going to just take an image and put it in the magazine without talking to the photographer and figuring out a different sort of, you know, contractual obligation. But for strictly online, yes, I will publish if the entire 500 images of the shoot are just phenomenal images. I mean, I never have, and I probably never will, but I will publish 500 images.
And the typical license is it's an online usage only, as you mentioned before. And are you embargoing? Or is it?
You know, we're working out kind of, we had a contract right now that was kind of for the magazine and for online that had a specific, I think the embargo period, I don't remember 100%, was 45 days. Now, for online use, this is sort of extreme. As soon as it goes up, it's there.
Yeah.
It's grabbable. It can be shared very easily. So I sort of opted for a less strict embargo period with my photographers. It makes up for the fact that we're not necessarily going to pay them as much as a double truck in a magazine.
Right.
So I think really short embargo period, you're getting incredible content, portraiture of these really famous artists. It allows you to turn that around and resell that quicker.
And they're obviously maintaining full copyright, et cetera. You're
Full
just licensing.
copyright,
Okay.
yeah. Yes,
Cool.
it's licensing in perpetuity. So we're not going to use the images outside of the use that they were originally intended for, but we don't have to do a relicensing period.
Right. We're getting a number of questions in regards to the role of video that's obviously built into
Mm-hmm.
every DSLR
Sure.
nowadays. Is that something that when a still photographer is hired, are you looking for
Mm-hmm.
them to provide video at all?
No, we have a very very good video team. So like I mentioned before, sort of any photographic shoot that we're doing is in tandem with a video shoot. So we have our video team
Gotcha.
doing that. I never really need to hire photographers to shoot video.
Your thoughts on email marketing? I liked a lot of these. Yeah, why don't you take us through this so
Yeah.
everyone knows how to contact you? Well, we're not going to give
Oh,
out her
okay.
email address. You'll have to track it down yourself. But if you do send her an
It's
email, these are
easy.
the things you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm easily findable. Maybe sad, but so because I also work in design, I'm very cognizant of how photographers brand themselves. I personally like receiving mailers that are just big images, clean typography. I don't want to see a lot of copy. I want to see some sort of consistency in your template. But I really like nice typography. It kills me when I see a photographer's website or a mailer with a terrible font choice for their name.
Yeah.
I sort of immediately think, okay, well, if this is a terribly branded experience, are they going to be able to be creative when I need them on the shoot? Honestly, it translates like that for me. So I think it's really important to brand yourself well as a photographer, not just with your imagery, but with your entire look.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
When
um,
someone
mhm.
sends you images in an email, what size are you looking for? How many?
Hmm.
What sort of
Um,
visual range?
yeah, I don't obviously I don't like being sent singles in emails. I don't necessarily really like PDF attachments. I do like those sort of emailers that are sent out in mass, because if they're well laid out, I will click on your link and go to your website. And I'd much prefer looking at a website than having an attachment. I really would. I mean, I think I don't have an example of this. My friend Nathan Perkel, who's a really very good photographer, has a great mailer. He has a few very big images,
Mm-hmm.
a few words of copy about what he's doing, maybe some smaller images at the bottom, sort of outlining some other stuff he's doing. Not too many images, maybe the two biggest shoots that you've recently done
Right.
with a few kind of fillers at the bottom with a few words of copy, and that's it. If you have two beautiful images from two beautiful shoots, yes, I will click and go to your website to browse.
When so we did a free downloadable guide. This is the PhotoShelter pitch. We did a free
Mm-hmm.
downloadable guide about email marketing
Mm-hmm.
for photographers. And one of the things that we had heard was the photo buyers we talked to said, email me on a monthly basis so I know what you're up to. Because if you if
Yes.
you
Mm-hmm.
do it quarterly or twice a year, I'll forget who you are.
Totally forget about
Right.
who you are. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I love consistency, especially with photographers I've already worked with. I love to keep up with my photographers and see what they've been working on. And yeah, I will forget about you. So, don't be excessive. Don't email
Right.
me every day or even every week. Once you have a great project, once a month I think is a really good amount of time.
Who was the name of the photographer that you really liked?
In terms of the mailers,
Yeah, the mailers.
from what I can remember, I haven't seen his mailer in a while. Nathan Perkel, I know Adam Kraus, who's a photographer I work with, also has a really nice mailer. I just received one the other day and I forgot the name. But I do, sorry, but I do on occasion receive these really kind of clean, well-branded mailers that I appreciate.
Now, you say here that you don't like direct mail because you work in an online medium, which makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Yeah, I don't mind it, but I really, the way that I view things is on websites. It really
Right.
is.
So it's sort of, I mean, in the same way that you want to see images that are appropriate for Billboard.com, you want to see online stuff, electronic stuff versus
I
printed
do.
material. Yeah.
I do. I love comp cards and I love putting them all over my desk and I do look at them. But honestly, when it comes to, I want to see the way your images translate online, definitely on a computer screen. I also, just because I work online and I have always worked online, I'm incredibly familiar and comfortable with that environment in terms of viewing images. So I appreciate websites.
And just so we can understand, when you find like a good email piece and you click onto the website, do you have kind of a bookmark folder that you're maintaining, or is it
I
really
do.
like, okay,
I do. I definitely have a bookmark folder of websites. I also have a spreadsheet of different regions of contact information, websites, and names, from everyone from New York to San Francisco to Texas to Chicago.
hmm,
So I have my kind of Google Docs always on call.
cool. And so we can talk about websites now, and we have some visual examples as well. But take us through the starting with the no flash. Take us through
God,
the
oh, it just kills me, these super flashy websites. And I'm sure other editors have said this before. I have an iPad, I have an iPhone. I like sharing and looking at websites on my mobile devices. It frustrates the hell out of me when I like a photographer site, want to bring it up when I'm, above ground on the train to look at it, and I just can't see it. It kills me. I hate Flash. Don't do Flash. Or make
yeah.
a mobile-friendly version of your site if you have to do Flash. It's really important for editors, specifically if editors are out and want to show another editor, look at this site I found, I think this photographer would be perfect for your shoot. They want to show on the phone, so no Flash.
So photographers are often rightly concerned about having their images stolen. How do
Mm-hmm.
you feel about visible watermarks on the images on their
Oh,
website?
hate them. I
Okay.
hate them. I mean, the whole, I 100% obviously understand the copyright issues
Yeah.
and the stolen issues, and it definitely is kind of this gray legal area right now that no one can seem to sort of lock down in a good way. But you know, by being that protective, it doesn't come across well. It doesn't translate well to the editors. You have to have your images out there. If people want to steal your images, they will find a way.
Right. Right.
Um, I just think it seems very kind of old fashioned to watermark your images. It doesn't seem like a very fresh practice,
Right.
and I think it'll turn off a lot of editors.
You love photographer blogs. I
I
like that. What,
do.
what what sort of things do you like to see on the blog? Because obviously there's quite a range of photographer blogs out there.
There definitely is a range. I don't necessarily want long essays,
Yeah.
on the state of photography. Reserve that for more specific photo editor blogs and PDN blogs, and I mean, even though PDN has very visual blogs as well, which I love. But I really want to see what you're shooting recently. I think it's websites and your portfolios on your websites can often get stale, not necessarily because you haven't shot in a while, just because you forget to update.
Yeah.
So having a photo blog and specifically the interface of Tumblr is so easy. I sort of get a feel for what the photographer's been shooting, how their
Mhm.
style is evolving, what they've been recently into, where specifically they might be. um, so it kind of gives me kind of a fresh look into what they've been doing. I also just appreciate photographers that sort of love shooting, and I think blogs often identify that. If you're excited about your blog and what you're putting up, you probably will be excited on a shoot for me. So it
Right.
gives me that sort of
So
feeling.
some photographer blogs take the tact of my audience is other photographers, and therefore I'm showing lighting setups and behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes. How
Sure.
do you feel about those?
I think those are great. I think those DIY blogs are just wonderful. I
Yeah.
think there's the DIY strobe blog that I really like. I don't know if that's the name of it, but I think those are wonderful. If you're a photographer and you're really good at post-production, why not teach some of your skills online? If you have a wonderful lighting setup, that's great. I really do appreciate those blogs. I may not be scanning that blog for looking for work,
Right.
but I think they're wonderful. And if you have a certain skill set, I say share it.
So a few people are asking what font face is. I can explain
Sure,
that
sure.
one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's in cascading style sheets. You've heard of
Hmm.
HTML and CSS. Font face allows you to override those boring standard computer fonts, and there are services out there like Typekit that
Hmm.
give you a whole range of different font faces that you can use on your website. So actually, some of the PhotoShelter websites have Typekit integration. So it just gives you like it looks better. Like if you're into
Yeah.
design and into typography, you can look for, Google web fonts and you'll find all of these different things that you
Hmm.
can integrate into your website.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Um,
exactly it. I mean, it just
so,
goes back to my point about if you're showing this sort of creativity in your branding and your kind of
right.
typography, it gives me confidence that you're going to be creative and well stylized for my shoot.
Now, you obviously Billboard.com were like the pinnacle of cool music and cool lifestyle. You mentioned two uh, technologies that are totally hip, right?
Hmm.
Instagram, and you also mentioned Tumblr, which is
Uh-huh.
like a rocket ship of coolness, right?
Yep,
How do
definitely.
you feel about the more staid things like, Facebook or
Oh,
Google Plus?
definitely. Definitely. Facebook and even Twitter, I guess, can kind of be considered old fashioned at this point.
Right,
Um, Yes, definitely. Facebook, I think, is, it's a great vehicle. There's a lot of junk that you have to wade through in Facebook now. But, I always post on Facebook when I have a new shoot, and I think it does obviously translate to an audience well. Yeah, I think staying social and tweeting out your shoots or what you're doing or something you find interesting is great. I think Instagram, like I mentioned before, is a wonderful kind of photography social app. Twitter, Facebook, I think I've mentioned all of these, but and then Tumblr, like I said before, I think is a great blog vehicle for your images. I mean, don't go overboard, but
yeah.
if it's comfortable for you to kind of put your images and information out in the world, I say do it.
So this is a website of one of the photographers you like,
Hmm.
Kyle Dean Reinford
Hmm.
Photography.com.
Hmm.
And the one thing that I sort of pointed out yesterday was that it's one of these horizontally scrolling for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it seemed like you really like these for some reason.
I do. I really appreciate the verticality of websites, and it's a very vertical medium. There's not enough scrolling that can be done. But for some reason I appreciate the horizontal scroll when it comes to photography websites. It just reminds me of a book almost. It's
Yeah,
like more of a narrative when you're looking at these portraits here. I think he did a very nice job of kind of putting images together. It just reads better. It is kind of that left to right that we're so used to seeing, specifically
right.
in photo books or just reading in general. And I do like the horizontal scrolls quite a bit. And it's simple. It's a really simple website to build, and no Flash, HTML.
Yeah,
And yeah, I do enjoy the horizontal scrolls with a fixed navigation. So
right.
a lot of photographers have the fixed navigation on the left side of the page. Kyle has his on top, so I can always navigate. I don't have to scroll up or scroll over to get to another section of his website.
And I should point out to everyone listening before you go and change your website, this is one person's opinion, right? So it's
Yes, this is definitely one person's opinion. I mean, I am all for vertical. I think utilizing kind of the vertical ability of the web is great as well. My personal aesthetic, I really appreciate horizontal scrolls.
right. Another photographer, Jason Nocito,
Hmm.
and more of a traditional layout here with the left navigation and the
Hmm.
large image.
I love Jason's work, and I hope to one day work with him. But I like his website as well. It's super clean, very simple. When you click on these individual portfolios, you sort of get these thumbnail views in the same sort of well area as this big photo, and it's just very easy to navigate. It's all sort of contained, and just very very clean.
So this is actually, I've talked to a bunch of different photo editors in these various webinars, and I often hear that, like, I really love this photographer. I can't wait to find a project to use them on. Can you just sort of describe, because it's so frustrating for photographers to hear that, right? Like,
Hmm.
what do you mean? Like, if you really liked me, you would just hire me, but that's not necessarily the case, it seems.
Well, Jason was busy actually for a project I thought he would be perfect for, because he's very good. So it's assumed that he would be busy. But in the future, it definitely. I mean, not every photographer is going to be right for certain projects. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily hire Jason Nocita to shoot K-pop Wonder Girls for me, you know? So it has to be the right photographer. Stylistically, I think you can tell by a photographer's work, you know, what you may or may not want them to shoot.
Right, right. Now, a few people were saying, well, you're saying to really show a creative side and use
Mhm.
nice typography, and they're wondering, well, does that mean I have to build my website from scratch? And I really don't think
No,
it's whether you use a template or not. It's really just kind of, is it is the photography good? Maybe you chose a different typeface and it's
you
well
know,
laid out.
yeah, I mean, this site of Jason's is incredibly simple. I don't know if he
Yeah,
built it, but I'm sure there's a template that looks maybe almost identical to this, but it's just it's the small details. Jason's name is in red, slightly bigger than photography.
yeah,
I mean, it just those attention to details. You don't have to build your own website. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beautiful website templates available to you. Even something like Index Exhibit, this kind of freeware. It's just simple.
yeah.
I just if you the photography does speak for itself to an extent, but if you have a bad website with a bad layout that's hard to see the images clearly, people are going to get frustrated and not look through the images
Right, right.
and just leave the site.
Here's another one, Casbird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Casa's work is great as well. The same sort of scroll, the horizontal scroll, big
Yep.
images, kind of a fixed navigational bar on the right, simple site, and all of these images, to go back to your point about watermarked, Cass and Jason and Kyle, I mean, none of these images are watermarked. If you
Yep.
wanted, you could right click on these images, but that's not what these photographers are concerned with. They want Kathy Ryan from the New York Times Magazine, to be able to go in and say, look, that's a beautiful image. I love that picture without a watermark over the model's head. So.
So these particular images, at least with the photographers that we've seen, and I know there are only three of them, which represent a small fraction, but they
Mhm.
they seem less saturated, more airy
Mhm.
feeling. So, and yet these are photographers that you have worked with or would consider hiring. Can you talk about, like, these are not musicians in these photos? So what is sort of,
Sure.
getting you to want to work with these guys?
Yeah, well, I've always loved Cass and Jason's work. I don't know if they've even ever considered working for Billboard.com, but I mean, when I chose these websites, it was less kind of stylistically about their images, even though I do love them.
Yep.
It was more kind of about the layout and the user interface of the websites. I mean, Billboard, in terms of the photography and the consistency, like I was saying before, in terms of the pop and the saturation, it I don't think that this necessarily stylistically is completely divergent from what I was
Right.
speaking to before. I think kind of a more like high key bright image doesn't necessarily not fit into kind of the stylistic realm of what I'm looking for.
Right.
It doesn't have to be super saturated and poppy, but it needs to not be kind of a dull, dark, non-contrasting image.
Right.
I think that's what
Right.
I'm really going for.
Okay. And how important, I mean, it is, you partially answered it because of the no flash, but how important is speed when you hit a photographer's website?
Oh,
Are you going to wait
God.
around or?
Don't give me an introduction with music that I could potentially skip. I just,
Right.
no, I think also I chose these websites because they go right into the images. You don't have the sort of introduction page,
Yeah, the
you can sort
logo
of,
flying in and
no, God, I don't, why, no, I want to see your images right away. Um, and those logo flying in are often flash sites anyway, so definitely don't
right,
want to see that. Um,
right.
yeah, I say always go, don't necessarily have an introduction page, or if you are going to have an introduction page, put an image that's just stark and striking, is going to want to bring people in.
Portfolio preferences.
Hmm.
No attachments. Why don't you take us through these?
Sure. So I personally don't like attachments in my email. It kind of clogs up my inbox. Like I said before, if you send me a mailer with kind of these embedded images within them, I will click on them if I think they're beautiful and we'll present it. I don't like PDFs. I really just enjoy looking at websites. I don't like downloading anything locally, to be honest. I don't have a need for that. I know sometimes with working on the magazine side, photo editors are going to have to print out these PDFs to show it to their creative director or their photo director, etc. I don't need to do that. So I really just appreciate kind of a teaser email with non-connected attached images and a link to a website.
Obviously, the emails are kind of the quickest and the most non-intrusive way for to show you work. How often are you doing sort of in-person portfolio reviews, and how does that influence your hiring,
Oh, I
if at
would like to
all?
do more. I love doing portfolio reviews. I really do. I'm busy. I'm a busy lady, but as much as I possibly can, kind of without obstructing my other work, I like to do portfolio reviews and bring people into the office. Um, I love seeing people's work, and I like that sincerity when people reach out to me directly and say, I would love to do a portfolio with you, instead of having a rep sort of reach out and say, my client's going to be in town and he would like to, that's very kind of insincere. Um,
Right, right.
so, I can't accommodate everyone that reaches out, but I do try to once in a while. And I know our photo editor on the magazine does as well.
And you've participated. I know Chris at our office had a portfolio review from you at one of the trade
Mhm.
associations. I think it was APA that was doing kind of a portfolio review.
Yeah, ASMP
Oh,
actually.
ASMP.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that. It seems like that's a decent way for people to get in front of photo editors by joining those
Yeah.
associations. And
Yeah, and going to those reviews. I did a Powerhouse one last year. I think I'm about to do another one that's more kind of video related. But yeah, I mean, those are great. Those are really great. And people are hired from those.
right.
I wanted to actually hire Chris for a shoot. I liked his work a lot. I definitely recommend signing up for those. I think that they are great ways to get in, in front of multiple editors to kind of share your name and share your work quickly.
Yeah. So we have a few images towards the end that you've commissioned in the past year or so. Why don't you take us through these?
Yeah, I love this picture. Mike McGregor, I always kind of wanted to work with him. He came highly recommended from a friend of mine who was an editor at Bloomberg Business Week, and I always really liked his work. So finally got to work with him on this shoot for a rapper named Big Sean. I love this picture. I mean, so many rappers are shot sort of in this very sort of stereotypical pose with the
Right.
hands and like these very stereotypical rapper shots. And I think this was just kind of a very innocent, beautiful black and white portrait of him. And I appreciated Mike's take on it.
We talked yesterday, and I was asking you because it sort of has kind of a medium to large format look with
Hmm.
a very shallow depth of field, but in fact you said everybody's submitting digital work and everybody's shooting digitally.
Everyone is, yeah. I don't necessarily have the budget or most specifically the time to
Hmm.
work with film or medium format. Sometimes turnarounds are 5 hours, 6 hours for images, and obviously I can't really do that with film. I
Yeah.
need everything digital. I need things transmitted to me through YouSendIt or an FTP pretty instantaneously.
Right. Right. Here's a little
Mhm.
environmental portrait, I guess we could call it.
Yeah, this is another one of Misha's shots. He shot the Rock the Bells picture for us before. It's a band called Yacht at the Treasure Island Festival in San Francisco. It's just it's a fun picture.
Right.
It's got that pop. It's sort of a great panorama. Definitely going to catch your eye. If it's a little kind of promotional image thumbnail on our main site.
When you're commissioning a portrait like this, are you providing any producer support, or are you basically like, okay, the band's going to show up here and take a photo?
Yep, pretty much.
All right.
These are not
Okay.
these are not huge productions.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a stylist on site. Maybe if the artist brings one from their label, but there's not going to be a stylist or a makeup artist, or it's you and the band
Yep.
and kind of make do, which I like. I personally, when I'm shooting, I sort of love that sort of DIY aspect of it. And not all photographers do. And I'll be honest, I don't necessarily hire photographers that need that sort of control and setup
Yeah.
and highly meticulous organization. I definitely need photographers who are a little looser with that.
So, you're obviously a photographer. You've worked as a photographer. Now you're the creative director, and you've done the photo editing thing as well. And it seems, and maybe it goes without saying, but I feel like it's a good reminder. Like nobody really makes a living shooting strictly editorial stuff.
It's
right?
hard.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's very, very difficult, right?
it's hard.
And
Yeah.
it seems like the dirty secret, and Peter Yang, who's a portraitist that I
Uh-huh.
love, who's
A
in
great
GQ and
photographer.
Esquire,
Uh-huh.
I know that he makes most of his money through commercial shoots that he doesn't
Yeah.
advertise, right?
Yeah, I know. It's sad because the editorial shoots are always the most fun, right? I mean,
Yeah,
really, really, I think, well, at least on Billboard shoots, you have such freedom. I really don't direct my photographers that much. I hire them because I think stylistically that they're strong and they can do this without sort of my control. I give them a few requirements in terms of sizing and sort of, verticality versus horizontal images, but I say go for it. Here's the talent and make something happen. And I think that creativity is fun. It
and
definitely
do you
is.
think it's fair to say that because you can get a lot of eyeballs on this work, that editorial work is almost PR for the photographer?
Oh
Like it's
yeah,
almost kind of like a loss leader,
definitely.
right?
Specifically when working with music photography, I know Joseph, for example, used to shoot a lot for AOL Sessions. And I just saw a press shot that he shot for Foster the People, and
Hmm.
you can get a lot of music photographers will get bands to hire them for press shots or labels to hire them for press shots or actually have their images purchased to use on,
Right.
their European press tour or so it's great publicity to have these editorial images online and on your blog and out and about on sites.
Yeah. Yeah. Great live shot here.
Oh yeah, Kyle. That's a Kyle shot again. Is a great picture of Swizz Beats. Yeah, from a concert that we actually hosted this summer. And he hustled that he didn't have access. I don't think we didn't get him access for our own show. Oh dear. But I think we eventually did. But really, I mean, there was no pit. He was I don't know. I think he might have been in the crowd for this or crouching down on stage or and he's a hustler and that's why I appreciate Kyle because I know he will always get the shot.
And this has a very Instagrammy look to
It
it too,
does.
right?
It does, and that's pretty much Kyle's post production there. I didn't touch it
Yeah.
that much. That's kind of stylistically how he shoots.
The last image that we're going to look at, I saved my favorite for last just 'cause I thought it was
This
funny,
is,
but it's also
uh,
like what's going on in this image? There's so many
oh, I
things going on
know.
in this image.
Oh God, this is from kind of the same event. It was just this mad event with Swizz Beats, this is actually an LMFAO set. They were kind of our closer
Uh,
headliner for this. So this is also an image that Kyle got, and they're just crazy performers. I mean, I have photos from the shoot of them throwing stuffed animals into the audiences and running around in their underwear, and just they're really intense performers, and it's a fun shot. This is sort of the stuff that I love. If I'm going to hire a photographer, I want them to get this sort of shots when they shoot
right.
live if they can, because like I said before, Getty is going to always take a very safe, good, usable shot. But if I have my own photographer in there, get this shot,
Right, right. Um, you mentioned at the top of the webinar that you really appreciate those photographers that stylistically have their post-production
Mm-hmm.
persona, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so is that sort of an expectation when you're hiring, like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing in Photoshop. He's got a voice with the post-production stuff.
To an extent, yes. I mean, I really hate when I'm delivered sort of these untouched assets.
Hmm.
Um, even with certain photographers, they're like, let me know what selects you want and I will retouch them. That's sort of old school for me because like I said before, I sort of might want to use every single image.
Yeah,
Hence kind of the need to be able to post produce your images on delivery. I mean, I really hate kind of over post production. I think some people may consider this image over post production.
hmm,
Um, but I don't like sort of an illustrative look. I just want, if you're taking an image like this with these lights and this contrast in this
yeah,
situation,
yeah,
make it pop. If you were a little underexposed and you know how to do Photoshop well and you have a great filter in Lightroom that's going to really make that pop, make it pop for me. I'll be
right.
impressed. It's less production work for me. Um, so
And maybe
it's
in
not a
this case, with
requirement,
all of
but
the artificial lighting, it's sort of like how we might have remembered the scene anyway, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point. It's not going to be sort of dull and desaturated and cold and really kind of dark. It's going to be this pop because that's what this event was.
right,
Um,
right.
so just I appreciate photographers who have kind of technical knowledge. I think it's an important thing to know how to do.
So a few more questions, and then we'll let you go because we're almost out of time. A few people wanted to know whether, when you're hiring photographers to cover events, are you getting credentials for those photographers, or does it usually work in
Yes.
reverse? Okay.
Yes, we definitely get credentials for the photographers. There are a
Yeah.
few rare cases, like with Misha. He has great connections with, Bill Graham Auditorium and publicists in San Francisco, where he's like, don't worry about it. My friend got me this badge. I don't need it. But no, we mostly get, I would say 99% of the time, credentials. We never expect a photographer to get their own credential.
And is the coverage that you have mostly US based? Because we have a number of international photographers listening to us today.
Yeah, thus far it has been. I think we were kind of playing and kicking around with the idea of someone shooting Glastonbury, potentially this year or next year.
Hmm.
We didn't do that, but would like to. I would love to see more kind of international concerts. It's never really been kind of a priority for us in terms of hiring.
Yep.
We sort of sometimes think very locally, but I mean, I would love to hire out for some of kind of the crazy electronic festivals in Germany and K-pop festivals in Korea and those sort of things. I think that would be definitely fun. I can't necessarily define everything that we're going to hire out for. That's sort of an editorial call sometimes above
Right.
me.
Um, and so assuming that a lot of people are going to look you up and try to send you photos and pitches, etc., why don't you give us maybe the 3 things you don't want to see from them? Because we don't want to stifle too much creativity, but we also don't
Flash
want you to
website.
get... Yeah, okay, so yeah, no Flash website.
Yeah, just don't send me attachments. I really, I'm not going to download them. I'm not going to download a PDF. I'm just not going to do that. It's going to clog up my inbox. If you do really want to get in touch with me, I would really, I know it's hard because not everyone has kind of the access to these really kind of high-powered emailers that some photographers have access to. Send me a link to your website if you can kind of figure out how to embed images in emails without making them attachments.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's hard, but I really do think if you're not on an emailer system, I would get on that. There's some really nice ones. I even feel like Apple may have one through iPhoto, or I don't know for sure, but I think it's a great thing to do. I just really don't appreciate attachments because I'm not going to open them.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have actually, I know a number of people have asked us, but we are recording this webinar and we'll have it up within the next 24 hours or so. But I really want to thank Rachel for joining us today. It really was a nice insight into the world of music and Billboard.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Just to let you know, in the audience, we have another buyer webinar coming up on November 15th with Michelle Stark from Men's Health magazine. That is not me on the right. That's actually Dwight Howard, in case you were wondering.
Are you sure?
And yeah, exactly. And even though it says register now at photoshelter.com/about/webinar, I understand that we didn't actually get this particular one up, but we'll also have that up in the next 24 hours. But thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks to Rachel for providing all the information, and look for the recording of this on the PhotoShelter blog tomorrow.
Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone.